French Weekly. Marianne joins us, and so does Ignazio Corrao, Italian MEP and EU Affairs Advisor for Italy's Five Star Movement. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Mr. Corrao, is Italy basically provoking France by interfering in its politics?
No, I wouldn't say so. I'd rather say that many times the French government provoked Italy and the new Italian government. We don't forget when Emmanuel Macron said that there was a populist leprosy going on in Italy. He was referring to the new government saying that there were the new Mussolinis or other words not really acceptable. And we didn't withdraw, we didn't recall our ambassador in Paris. What we say is that we are family with the French people, and this is more a quarrel, more an argument between friends than an international crisis. But it's
not very friendly to...
We cannot accept.
It's not very friendly, is it, Mr. Corrao, to have one of your senior leaders go and meet with the people who are organising the violent demonstrations on the streets of Paris?
Yes, but I mean, we didn't go and meet. I mean, I was at that meeting, so I could testify that we didn't go and meet anyone violent, anyone that want to smash windows. We just went and meet someone who want to run for the European election, and this is absolutely normal in the European democracy when all political parties, movements, delegation meet with other parties, movement, and delegation of the other countries of Europe. So we went there. Luigi Di Maio wasn't there as the deputy prime minister of Italy, was there as the political chief, the political leader of the Five Star Movement, and we just had a meeting when we talked about programs, ideas, and our path. Because 10 years ago, the Five Star Movement was born as a peaceful movement that was protesting against the bad politics of Italy. And then in 10 years, we reached the 33% of consensus of vote in Italy. So we were just talking about the programs, ideas, and the chance, the possibility of running together for European election. But of course, this has to be seen because they are starting now. So that was the point. There's no political interference in domestic affairs of France.
Agnes Paré, then the Macron government's overreacting to all of this.
Well, look, I'm not a politician, unlike your guest in Strasbourg, so I'm not here to defend France or attack Italy. What happened is that there's been a war of words on both sides, really, of the border since the new government in Italy has been running Italy less than a year ago. And the response from the Macron government so far was to ignore it. Which I think was a good thing. Now, what happened really is when the number two, as you said, of the Italian government is going to another country to meet with a political position that is actually calling for insurrection in France, you at least warn the authorities that's what you're going to do, which didn't happen. So it's a breach of diplomatic, rules, if you'd like. So, of course, the response from the Macron government is quite pugnacious, and quite strong, but perhaps it was required in order for both countries to actually calm down and get to, a better basis.
You're shaking your head there at the European Parliament. Why is that? Mr. Corrao, why are you shaking your head?
Because I mean, what I think about that is that Macron just overreacted, that is a person who has his people against, and he needs to find an enemy to run for the European election. So the overreaction against the Italian government is just a way to go for his scope, for his goal of having something to say for the European election. But the thing that Macron has to say, he doesn't have to look at Italy and what is going on with the neighbors. He should talk to his people and understand why people are protesting in the streets, because this is not about violence. This is about problems that is having with his people, with the French people. And what we are doing is just trying to find another way for Europe, and this is democracy. We have to talk with those people that want to run for the European election.
Okay, well, I want to come on to that, but I do want to bring in Lord Ricketts. For once, this is something the UK are observers rather than participants on a great European dilemma. Do you see this as a passing spat, or is there something more significant going on here?
First of all, it's a reminder that Brexit isn't the only thing going on in Europe. I think it is more serious than a passing spat. Clearly, the sinking poll ratings of 5-star in Italy ahead of the European Parliament elections are relevant to this, but it's clearly also a deliberate act to tap into some deeper animosity towards France that there exists in Italy. I think partly as a result of the migration crisis, and what I think is seen in Italy as France's failure to share solidarity with Italy over those massive migrant arrivals, austerity as well, and a certain preachiness in French presidents.
But at the same time, there is something going on in French politics, isn't there, with these demonstrations which have been going on for 14 weeks now in Paris, the Gilets jaunes, and arguably, as something like the 5-star movement, a populist movement, it's perfectly legitimate to express its support for that sort of movement in a sister country, isn't it?
It sounds to me like the 5-star movement hasn't yet understood what it is to be in government. I mean, yeah, as a protest movement, they're entitled to talk to any protest movement in Europe. But Mr. Di Maio is Deputy Prime Minister of Italy, and to come to France and go only to see the Gilets jaunes, not to have any contact with the French government, is provocative. I mean, it's discourteous, and it sounds like they haven't quite understood that there are responsibilities about being in power. And so you can understand that the French government were angry. It's a very sensitive time in France. There's a lot of tension in both France and Italy from populism, and this looks like an effort to stir that up.
And it's probably, I mean, is this really about politics, about Macron having come in, if you like, on a bit of a populist wave, or at least breaking the two mainstream parties, now realising that he's the establishment?
Well, you know, I mean, establishment is a word that everybody's throwing at each other's face. And
I don't know, elite, if you prefer.
Well, except he wasn't the elite 18 months before he was elected. And in a way, he's very much also, you know, like the Cinque Stelle or a new phenomenon in French politics. So, you know, when Matteo Salvini and Cinque Stelle were elected to power in Italy less than a year ago, they made Macron their target more than Macron made theirs, you know, his target. Remember Orban and Salvini meeting in Milan saying our common enemy is Macron. So Macron just responded to that saying, well, of course, I'll be your enemy if you want me to be, because I'm a liberal and you're a populist. Look, I see something quite positive actually coming out of this. It's the emergence of a common political space in Europe, a sort of free movement of debates on ideas, because suddenly, and Brexit plays a big part in this, suddenly what's going on in neighbours countries and friends, in Poland, in Britain, in Italy, in France, in Hungary, is actually our concern. So it's ironic, of course, that it's political extremes or populist parties like Cinque Stelle in Italy and the Lega that are responsible for the emergence of a common European debating space, if you'd like.
Do you think, Mr. Corrao, that the truth is your party's just not ready for government, not ready for responsible government protests, all very well making gestures, but you don't know how to conduct it at leadership level?
We were born 10 years ago, and as I was saying, we were a protest movement. It was this big idea of Beppe Grillo and Gianroberto Casaleggio that transformed the protest into a construction of a political movement that got to 1/3 of the Italian votes in the last election. And we are speaking to all those political forces that don't think that the establishment or the ideological extremism on the left and the right are the solution for the future of Europe. We are trying to build what we built in Italy, an alternative, a concrete, real, peaceful alternative in the other countries of Europe. This is European politics that we want to play, but in order not to destroy, because this is a false message created by the establishment, but to build a better Europe, a stronger Europe, a Europe that put first the interests of European citizens, of the social problems before the financial powers, before the multinational corporation interests, and the neoliberalist system that is the system that people like Macron love and that cause the effects that then are paid by European citizens like the French that are protesting in the streets. This is the point. We don't interfere with domestic affairs. We want to build a better Europe, and I think that the French government that is very good on speaking is the one that many times interfere with domestic affairs of other countries, like the Venezuela case that we are debating in this period.
Are you seriously supporting the Maduro government there?
No, we are not pro-Maduro. We are for the respect of the principle of sovereignty that is an international principle.
You want respect for Maduro, but you don't want respect for Macron. People might see a bit of a contradiction there.
No, because we are in a European Union, we have all the rights to talk to those people and those movements who want to run for the European election. Venezuela is not part of the European Union, is not part of our community. Venezuela is a sovereign state and is a country where there is a lot of oil, and normally the United States of America want to export democracy where there are lots of resources. This is a problem because in the Security Council of the United Nations, there is no agreement for an intervention or an ultimatum on Venezuela, and this can be a serious international crisis when you put Russia and China on one side and the United States of America and the Western states on the other. And with the INF withdrawal, this can be serious for the world balances. This is a problem, and we have to be cautious. What we say on Venezuela is that for the first time, Italy is trying to negotiate and trying to find a solution that don't cause for the Venezuelan people a civil war and a worse situation that they already have. And this doesn't mean that we are pro-Maduro. We are for not an intervention and not a civil war, because this is the risk.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, all of you, for joining us. This is All Out Politics. Coming up next, the landmark trial over Catalonia's failed attempt